Hey everybody, I am Chris Baker from Lucky Gunner, and today I am going to talk about the Ounce pistol, an 11-shot semi-automatic 22 that folds like a pocket knife. This is part 5 of Project Rimfire, where I am reviewing a ridiculous number of 22 handguns. I was not able to get my hands on one of these before our 22 pocket pistol roundup video, but I ran it through all the same tests, so we will see how it measures up in just a minute. But first, what the heck is this thing? The Ounce pistol is produced by Third Bay LLC. As far as I know, this is the only product they make. I guess the best way to describe it would be a folding bullpup long recoil operated pistol. Starting from the folding position, you press this blue button in the tang of the pistol grip. That releases the top half. Then you have to manually open it the rest of the way. At this point, if the gun was loaded, I could fire it. There's no additional manual safety. To close it, press down on this green lever and just fold it back up until it clicks. Loading is where things get really weird. It fires from a fixed internal magazine right here. To load it, you close it about halfway, pop open the magazine cover, and now you make sure this white thing here is pushed over to the right. You take your first round and place it in here vertically. And when the gun is chambered and the action cycles, this carrier here is going to rotate down and feed that round into the chamber. But first, I am going to just go ahead and load the rest of the rounds in the magazine. When you're done loading the magazine, you can close the cover. And then we're going to chamber around. Now, this next part you got to do very carefully, because if you don't, you'll get a round kind of halfway chambered, and the only way to fix it is to take the gun apart. So, close the gun most of the way. Then this lever here, you're going to push it up and into this notch, hold it in place while you close the gun the rest of the way, and make sure it clicks all the way closed. Release that lever. And now you've got to open it very sharply, and that's when it actually chambers the round. So I'm going to open it. You can kind of feel it chamber the round. It feels a little different. And you know it's chambered because this indicator here will turn red. Or we can close it, open the magazine door, and see that there are now 9 rounds in here instead of 10. And I can go ahead and stick in my 11th round to top off the magazine. The gun does have sights right here on top of the magazine. They're not great, but I have seen much worse on other pocket pistols. When you fire, the entire barrel and bolt retract in and out of the body of the pistol, which is what makes it a long recoil action. Empty shells eject down through this port here and pass through an opening in the bottom of the grip. To disassemble the gun for cleaning, I am first going to unload it, so I'll close it halfway just to disable the gun, open the mag door, and dump those rounds out. Then I'm going to follow that chambering process to empty the chamber. This lever, click it shut. That round comes out of the bottom of the grip, and loaded chamber indicator is no longer red, so the gun is empty. Now to take it apart. I'm gonna open the mag door, and now this whole half of the gun, you just kind of rotate it, and it pops right off, just like that. This is our barrel, and this whole thing just lifts right out, and then pull this little guy back to separate the bolt. I've seen some confusion online over what materials the Ounce is made of. As far as I can tell, the 2 halves of the grip are polymer. The upper receiver, including the magazine cover and this side cover, are aluminum, and the barrel is steel, and the bolt also is steel. This is all the brainchild of Bill Osborne, product designer and founder of Third Bay. Basically, what we have here is an extremely clever piece of engineering from a complete industry outsider who broke every rule handgun makers have been following for the last 100 years. Now, sometimes that's a good thing. We need outsiders to come in and shake things up every now and then. But is this actually a viable self-defense tool? Well, let's start with how it performed in our Project Rimfire benchmark tests. For the accuracy test, 5-round groups at 25 yards from a bench rest, it performed best with CCI mini mags. Average group size was 3.4 inches. That's better than 2 of the other 3 pocket pistols I tested. However, all those groups were hitting about 7 inches high and 3 inches to the left at 25 yards. So the sights are definitely a limiting factor at that range for this gun. In the practical test and the speed test, the ounce actually outperformed all the other pocket pistols. You can find the details of those tests in the pocket pistol roundup video. The targets are closer for those tests, so the sight offset didn't matter as much. Despite the odd appearance, it's got a conventional grip angle, it points naturally. The single action trigger breaks at about 5 pounds with very little take up. Overall, it's really an easy gun to shoot once you get through the tedious loading process. But you know, all those tests were designed with larger pistols in mind that we're going to be covering later on in Project Rimfire. For a pocket pistol, our priorities are a little different. The ounce pistol was conceived as an attempt to address common concerns that make a lot of people hesitant to carry a gun for self-defense. The designer specifically mentions size, weight, fear of others seeing the gun, and concerns about unintentional discharge while carrying. Now, I would probably argue that those are not the biggest barriers most people have to concealed carry. I would also argue that there are much simpler solutions to those concerns than coming up with a completely novel handgun design. But that said, the ounce does address all those concerns pretty well. It is small and light, just 9 ounces loaded. It definitely does not look like a gun when it's folded. It fits very comfortably in my pocket and does not leave a gun-shaped outline. It seems like a safe design. The barrel retracts when it's folded, so as far as I can tell, there's no way for the internal hammer to hit the firing pin. Even without a holster, I don't have to worry about anything getting in the trigger guard. But there are some other non-negotiable criteria for any self-defense gun. 2 of the big ones are reliability and accessibility. So how does the ounce do there? I ran it through the basic 200 round reliability test that I've been doing for all the other 22s in this series. I only had 1 malfunction. That's fewer than the other 22 pocket pistols, but it's still 1 too many. A self-defense gun really should be able to pass this standard with flying colors. And then there is the issue of clearing a malfunction. In this case, it was a failure to feed. The only way to cycle the action again is to repeat the chambering process, close it most of the way, lift the lever, close it all the way, then open it again. There is no tap rack bang here. If this gun were to fail in the middle of an incident, it's pretty much game over. Accessibility is usually determined by how we carry the gun, holster choice, location on the body, cover garments, that kind of stuff. With the ounce, the design of the gun itself presents a challenge for accessibility. Deploying the ounce is really a 4-step process. First, you have to retrieve it, probably from a pocket. Then you have to press the release button, which is pretty small. A spring forces it open a little bit, but then you're gonna have to manually open it the rest of the way. I did try different methods of kind of flicking it open one-handed, and it's possible, but the quickest and most reliable method is to just use your other hand. And then finally, you will have to reposition the firing hand on the grip before you can actually fire. Now, all of that is not quite as complicated as I'm making it sound, and it actually wasn't as slow as I thought it might be. As a warning, when you try to do this quickly, it's really easy to muzzle your support hand after the gun is opened, so I just went with a one-handed grip like that. With a little practice, I was able to open it and hit a target 3 yards away in about 2 to 2.5 seconds. For comparison, I can do that with my normal carry gun with a belt holster in roughly half that time. But to be fair, that's a draw stroke I've practiced literally tens of thousands of times. I am sure with more practice and technique development, I could deploy the ounce a little quicker, but I don't think it's ever gonna be as fast as a conventional handgun. What I'm actually more concerned with is just how fussy that whole deployment process is. The small release button, the fact that it requires 2 hands. My grasp on the gun doesn't feel very secure until I get that full firing grip with my strong hand. It's kind of like carrying a gun with no round in the chamber. It seems like it would be quick and easy to just rack the slide as you draw the gun, but in reality, if you look at recordings of armed encounters, People fumble this all the time. It adds a layer of complexity to an action that you might have to perform under a great deal of stress. I take no pleasure in criticizing this gun. It really is an incredible feat of engineering. The fact that somebody not only came up with this idea, but also managed to go through all the steps necessary to put working models into production is nothing short of amazing. The concept of a folding pistol that doesn't look like a pistol is undeniably cool. But achieving that requires a mechanism that's vastly more complex and delicate than anything found in a conventional pistol. The manual of arms is unintuitive, especially for people new to concealed carry, the very audience this gun is intended for. And the method of deployment is relatively slow and introduces multiple opportunities for user error. That's a lot of trade-offs for a gun that folds into a package that's really not much smaller than existing pocket pistols. The ounce is available directly from Third Bay for $8.99. Now that's a lot of money for a novelty, and it's a lot of money for a .22 pocket pistol, but I would happily pay that for a more conventional .22 pocket pistol if it were truly premium quality and it solved a real persistent issue in this category: reliability. The people behind the ounce clearly have the engineering talent to tackle a challenge like that. I just wish that's where they had chosen to aim it. And speaking of aiming, the next time you need some ammo, be sure to get it from us with lightning fast shipping at Lucky Gunner.